Welcome back to Healthy Don't Hurt. It's your boy E Man. We're back in the building. We're back in business, and business is booming. I am recording this show with a little bit of an audience here. My girl's in the car, Mrs. Healthy, but hopefully I could do this in one take. So I want to talk about my experience in the restaurant business. So I worked at this little diner called Eaton Park in Pittsburgh. It's like a real popular food chain, and I had some of the best times of my life. I highly suggest that people work in restaurants so they know that, their server forgetting their honey mustard isn't the end of the world. I also think people should work in restaurants just because it's a good time. It was my first job that I ever had. I started from the age of 15. I started out as a busser, and then I was a dishwasher, then I was a cook. I did salad bar. I did it all. I was a greeter. I stayed up in there. And I worked there all throughout high school, through college, and I left at the age of 22. And it was just a blast, man. But I had to leave, bro. Like, it was a good time for a short time, but I had to get up out of there. And I just didn't think that the restaurant industry had anything to offer. Like, I was looking at my coworkers because I was a server at the time, but from the age of 18 to 22, I was a server, and I would see moms that I worked with make the same amount of money that I was making, right? And I would wonder how they would survive. Like, they have children. Like, I'm just trying to get through college and get some beer money on the weekend. Like, I wasn't even paying rent at the time, or I was paying a little bit of rent. It wasn't nothing heavy like it is now, but these people were paying mortgages and car notes and buying school clothes for their children. And I just didn't see how they did it, bro. Like, and I knew that it was just time for me to go. But there were a lot of pros, working in the restaurant industry. It was a good work environment, to be real with you. Like, when you're working in a restaurant, the people that you work with, you're just, you're talking, you're BSing, you're having conversations. The money's fast, if you're a server. Like, when I was a server, I would work 2 8-hour shifts, and I would leave with like a little bit over $200 on a good night if it was the weekend. And that's not too bad, So the money is pretty fast. It's straight to your hands. You don't got to wait till payday. It's just fast money, and it was flexible. The schedule was super flexible. You could pick up shifts. And if you're not a server in a restaurant, you could pick up shifts as like a cook, and even managers sometimes will pick up shifts too, depending on what they got going on. And that's the management wasn't too bad. I do think the management was a pro in my personal experience. And my girl's in the car. Hopefully she don't pop me. But there's women. You working with women. A lot of young men watch my videos. So if you're like, I want to work where the chicks work, they in the restaurants. And God help you, if your girl's a server, your girl's probably getting hit on by some cooks. I'm just keeping it a buck. If you know, you know. But yeah, man, like a lot of women work in restaurants, whether it's like as a hostess, as a server, because the women make the most money. They made way more money than I made because I was just a muscular young black dude. But if you're a chick, you're attractive, you got big butt or boobs, dudes be treating that low key like it's the booty club. Like, they want eye candy with their meals, so they will tip you more. Like, they don't want my big black ass giving them their food. Hey, bro, you need a refill? They don't want that. They want something nice, you know. But yeah, besides women and like dating, like, I did have a little girlfriend. By the way, don't date in a restaurant. Just don't do it. Don't date at work in general. But I did have a little girlfriend that didn't last that long. Everybody's gonna be all up in your business. So if you do want to have a relationship, you cheat on her, the whole restaurant, the whole staff is gonna know. Her friends is gonna be looking at you. Not That's not what happened to me, but I'm just joking. But the staff's gonna be looking at you. Her little server friends. It's just, don't drink where you pee. So don't date where you work. It's just a bad idea. But if you really have to, or you're interested, that's totally an option. And you can make friends, bro. I made friends in the restaurant business as well. I made a couple friends, and they were way older than me. It was kind of weird. I was just at the point to where I was old enough to drink because I was 21. So I would be like hanging out or going out for drinks with people that were like in their 40s, which kind of isn't like normal, except at work. You really don't form that bond any other place in life where there's that big of an age gap besides work, especially in restaurants. So I thought that was pretty cool. Now, those are just the pros. There are some cons, bro. Like, the reason why I wouldn't recommend people staying for long, like, the benefits are trash. Like PTO, like, if you're sick, you don't get paid, especially if you're a server. If you do have a few sick days, it's not a lot. If you're like a hourly worker, if you do have vacation days, it's not a lot. You don't get bereavement. It's just a bad deal. The healthcare, not only do you not get paid as much as corporate employees or people that are in trades, you also don't have good healthcare. The healthcare is normally trash in restaurants. It don't matter what your position is. You can be a server, manager, a cook. The whole staff has the same access to the same crappy healthcare. And yeah, man, like if you miss a day, you don't get paid, especially if you're a server. So that sucks. Another con is the customers, like working with your employees, like your fellow coworkers, it's pretty nice, but the customers, they're going to give you a hard time if their food isn't cooked right. And it's going to mess up your day. It's going to mess up your pockets if you're a server. You're going to have to work harder if you're a cook. And your experience as an employee relies on their experience as a customer. And sometimes you can't always control how the food is cooked if you're a server, or if you're a cook, you can't control that the server spilt the food you just gave them. Like, there are just factors that you just can't control in a restaurant, and that may affect your day positively or negatively. Also, lazy staff, you feel me? This is another con. Lazy staff is a big issue in restaurants. You have a lot of young kids. This is their first job. They don't care. You have people in college that are lazy. They'll half behind stuff. They'll half ass stuff. They won't do things correctly the way it's supposed to be done. And they don't feel like they have to do it correctly the way it should be done because they're not getting paid that much, especially with servers. Servers only make $2.83 an hour. I do remember working as a server. Other servers would take shortcuts and not do stuff correctly. And if you're the last server to close, you have to make sure everything is done right, including other people's work. That made me hella frustrated, not gonna lie. Next con is calling off. People would call off and they wouldn't care because they're not affected, and they would call off just to go to the mall, or just to hang out with their friends or whatever, and the reason why calling off sucks for other people that you work with on that schedule is because now you're down a person. Like, the whole day is set up for 4 people, in the dining room, or 5 people, or a certain number of people in the dining room, or even in the back as a cook. It's set up for a certain amount of people to work for a reason, right? And so if one person isn't there, everybody that showed up for work has got to work harder, and sometimes that affects the quality or the speed of the service of the food. It just ends in like not having a good time, especially if your dishwasher calls off. Just people in general calling off will really affect your day. It really will affect the flow in the kitchen, in the back of the house, the front of the house. Like, it really takes a team effort to run a restaurant, and when someone doesn't show up, it shows. It shows. The next con would be bad management can ruin shifts. Not only can lazy coworkers ruin shifts, and bad regular workers not only can bad regular workers ruin shifts, bad managers can ruin the shifts too. You got some people that are in charge of the schedule that shouldn't be because they're mixing certain people. Not everybody works together. It's kind of weird. You do have some managers that don't think they've got to help. Or they don't have to help certain departments. Like, yeah, you'll help the cook, but you won't help the dishwasher. You'll help the dishwasher, but you won't help the servers. That stuff can just negatively impact the way things are going on any shift, whether it's nighttime or in the morning, especially when it's busy. Like, if you got a good manager, like, you'll be Gucci. I had a manager at Eaton Park. His name was Charles. And he would drink like 3 cups of coffee. He would drink like 3 cups of coffee and just go from station to station helping people. And then he would start like a little side project. He would be all cracked out on coffee. It was hilarious, but he was great. He was amazing. He's very high energy, very upbeat. He was always joking. And I was young, so like I thought that was pretty cool. But he made sure that if you needed help, you got it. And if I walked through the door and I seen Charles, I knew it was going to be a good night, man. And Shamara too. She was another manager. Coincidentally, they got married. Let's see. What's the next con? The skills don't transition well outside of the industry. The skills that you acquire in a restaurant are most likely only good inside of a restaurant. If you try to work in corporate America, I mean, as far as multitasking, your ability to do that may transition well in corporate, but it's not going to be like a smooth transition. Even with trades, it's just not the same. And you may struggle to get into a different space. Like if you work in a restaurant, you might not be able to join real estate as easily, because people will look at your resume. You don't know nothing about selling houses. Delivering or making pancakes, delivering and making steaks. You're in the restaurant industry. I'm doing logistics for pickup trucks. How can that transition over to what I'm doing? So people will see that, just as an example, people will see that you only are good inside of a restaurant, or your skills look like they can only be applied in a restaurant, so they may be reluctant to hire you. But yeah, man, I really do think that it's not a bad job if you're young. If you're young, you're underneath the age of 25, working in a restaurant is good. You can make some good money. I wouldn't work in restaurants if you have serious bills to pay. Like if you have real big dog bills to pay, like, rent that's over $1,000, if you have an expensive car note, student loan debt, high credit card debt, if you really got some major bills, you need to get out of the restaurant industry. And if you are going into it, I wouldn't go there for long. Like seriously, because it's not consistent. You need consistency in your life as a young adult and as an adult in general, and you need that check to be there. Like I work a normal computer job, like in a cubicle farm, like a corporate. I work a corporate job. If I don't show up to work because I'm sick, I still get paid. Like I can take vacation days. If my puppy dies, I can take bereavement pay. I don't have a puppy, but if somebody dies that's important to me, I can get bereavement. I can get paid to grieve pretty much and to get my life together before I've got to go to work. They don't have that in restaurants. Like once your life starts to get very serious and you have lots of bills and you need like security perimeters for your life, you need to get out of that. Or you need to get out of restaurants, because restaurants aren't going to provide safety parameters like PTO for when your puppy dies, or if you're sick, or if you're on vacation time. But I enjoyed it. It was great memories. I will remember going there, and I'm glad I got out when I did. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. That's my experience working in restaurants. It was a good time. I was in it for a good time, not for a long time. I got out once I looked at the lives of my coworkers, and I noticed that I did not want to be them. And I really knew that for a fact that if I were to stay there, I would be just like them. So, holla at y'all later. See you on the next episode. Peace.